these are
well, and that's enough to make people panic. You say go off of wheat and dairy, they're like, what's left to eat?
and
you know,
the average, but that goes to the whole problem is that these wheat and dairy make up 70–80% of the average
food choices,
right.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're flustered, and they need people like yourself to help. There is a world of food out there. You will not starve.
Right,
you know, you're gonna be okay.
You'll live.
But if you just doing that alone, just going off of wheat and dairy again for 2 weeks. Can't be 2 days, can't be a week. It's got to be at least 2 weeks.
Straight 2 weeks.
Straight 2 weeks. And if you have a little Ritz cracker in between, you sort of go back to page one. You need to start all over again. So it's 2 weeks of strictly remaining off of those particular foods.
And then how do you reintroduce those?
Well, again, in a simple diet like a wheat and dairy, going off of wheat and dairy. Basically, you just introduce one at a time, and then check for reactions. Again, my experience has been in reading the literature on the topic. When people have gone off of food that they're sensitive to, and when they reintroduce it, there's sort of a hyper response, and so it's not really subtle. They know right away. So if they're looking at joint pain or let's say skin rash, as soon as they have that big glass of cow juice, all of a sudden they're going to start noticing right away that their symptoms are coming back. I also have seen people breaking up dairy and cheeses, so they may test dairy and cheese at a separate time.
To see if they can handle one.
But basically you reintroduce the foods one at a time, try to do a lot of that food on that particular reintroduction day, and once the food is reintroduced, you kind of sit and wait. I get symptoms.
So what if you find that you do that and you can handle a couple of Ritz crackers, but when you eat the whole plate of pasta, I mean, so you really have to play with it.
Yeah.
You know, you could probably handle, some people can handle a little bit, but not a cup.
I think there's, I mean, the concept of the concept of individuality is goes without saying, and that there are going to be people who find that they can cheat a little bit. Other people can find that they look at a Ritz cracker, and I have nothing against Ritz crackers, but they look at something containing wheat, and they're going to start having problems. And it really is an individual thing that the person has to do a little bit of homework.
So this must be a reaction to my weenies I had all weekend. What do you think?
I think it's very possible.
Cleaning house.
But you're detoxing before our very eyes, and it's a wonderful thing.
It is a good thing. We're just purging and dripping. It's great. Real quick, Joe, once somebody has a food sensitivity or an allergy, do they always have a food sensitivity or an allergy? Is it a lifelong
I think
thing?
that's a tough question. And again, it goes to a high degree of variability. I think if someone gets a food, again, it depends on what you're dealing with. What are the symptoms you're dealing with? If you're dealing with a stuffy sinus, you know, that's not the end of the world. So if you can sort of play around with that. If you're talking about some more serious type of symptomatology, like neurologic, then I think you have to be way more careful.
Okay. So it's to be seen.
It's to be seen. I do think that over time, and when I mean time, I'm not talking about days or weeks, I'm talking about over years. I think as one improves their gut flora, their gut integrity, I do think that their tolerance of these foods would increase. I would say by and large.
So
for most people.
You would find maybe that you could do them once in a while,
right?
But
exactly.
not every day.
So you can have pizza once.
Okay. So are there ways to cure these allergies, in your opinion?
I don't like using the word cure. That's a tough term. But I think, unfortunately, it starts off with getting them out of the diet. You need to give the body rest. So step one is to get them out of the diet. I think another step is to start introducing variability in the diet. And again, seeking out the help of a good nutritionist. There's a world of, like quinoa, amaranth, different grains and fruit, and all the wonderful fruits and vegetables out there. So I think that there's a world of different foods out there that people need to explore, and they need to make it a point to introduce variability. And then, of course, I think supplements can be very, very helpful.
Well, that was my next question. What nutrients do you find are the most important if you have food allergies?
Well, I think number one, probably the star on the list are probiotics.
What's a probiotic?
Probiotics are the good guys, the beneficial gut bacteria.
Okay.
And you can, over time, repopulate the intestinal flora or the bacteria in the intestinal tract by by taking them as an oral supplement. Now, most cultures, if we look at some of the more primitive cultures, had a way of getting cultured foods or foods that contain bacteria.
Like yogurts?
Yogurt would be the classic example. But, what do we say the number one is dairy. So, sort of your betwixt and between.
How about sheep's yogurt?
I think that it may be tolerable, and what may even be more tolerable, this is going to blow everybody's mind, non-pasteurized cow's milk. Now, when you heat, anybody who's had Chemistry 101 know when you heat something, you denature the protein. Right. And when you denature it, you change the protein. So what we may be reacting to in dairy is the fact that it's pasteurized. And there are some people who would say that non-pasteurized milk is perhaps one of the most healthy things you could possibly consume. Now, what is the problem? Okay, yes.
Bacteria?
Well, yeah, but in a small farm,
we used to take it right out of the udder when I was a kid.
No, but if you want to mass produce, if you want to send out 1,000 bottles of milk a day, it's impossible then. So but that's the problem with mass production in agribusiness, is that we turn a good product into bad. And no, obviously you can't advocate the use of non-pasteurized milk on a large scale, but on a small scale, absolutely. And you may find that if you had non-pasteurized milk, that there is no reactions whatsoever. I have a friend who actually healed himself of Crohn's disease, and the crux of one of his treatments was non-pasteurized goat's milk that was made into kefir. Really? And he lived on that for about 4 months, 5 months, until his intestinal tract would start healing. Not pasteurized, non-pasteurized. So I think that...
Where do you get this? I've never seen it.
It's a whole underground.
There is milk products.
I think that it's really I'm shouldn't say it. I think in California it's legal.
Okay.
In other states, I think you have to be giving it to your dog.
Okay, got it. Okay, so we can get it for our dog.
You can get it for your dog and cat.
Okay, all right. And so probiotics, if someone were to try to re-inoculate themselves, how long, in your estimation, should one stay on those, or for life?
I think they're perhaps one of the most important supplements, and I would probably stay on them daily for several months, and then be on them several times a week, unless you're eating cultured foods. Now, I sort of digressed with the yogurt issue, but vegetables, true sauerkraut. It's Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus acidophilus. The same thing, the same bacteria that's in yogurt is what makes sauerkraut sour. So true sauerkraut. There are kimchi, which is from the Orient. That's another cultured food. So there are a lot of different cultured foods out there. I don't think we have a palate for these foods in this country. So I think most of us are going to wind up taking probiotics as a pill. But I think if you could introduce these foods into the diet, that would probably be even better still. I think...
Well, if people eat a combination of water with the right kinds of fibers, they can make some of their own probiotics as well.
Well, the bacteria in the gut
will help to flourish.
Will flourish, exactly. Those are... there's actually a term, and I'm escaping, but these are this sort of like the fodder for your probiotics, is to help, is healthy fiber, your flaxseed, and other good fruits and vegetables will help cultivate. So you have like a little farm going, a little farm thing going.
Yeah, we've got a little like animal farm. What about gluten products?
What about them?
What do you think?
Well, we might as well go over the sensitive 7.
Yes.
The sensitive 7 are the 7 most common allergens.
Right.
Number 1 being dairy, number 2 being wheat, and the protein component in wheat is gluten, and that's what most people react to. So I often tell people when I'm really in a bad mood, it's like, okay, when I really want to have it, so well, we're going to go off all the gluten grains: wheat, oats, barley, and rye. Now we can argue about some of the other grains, but primarily we'll find gluten in fairly substantial amounts in wheats, oats, barley, and rye. So they're off. So bye. So that's 1, 2. Then we have corn.
Which is in everything, right? It's in our candies, corn syrup.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. Because people, I don't eat corn. Well, did you have a pop the other day? Yeah. Well, look at the corn syrup.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
so we're getting, even though if we may never even eat an ear of corn, tremendous.
It's everywhere.
It's absolutely. It's
Yeah.
it's a major source of derived sweeteners.
Mm-hmm.
So there's corn, soy.
Big
You know,
one.
the wonderful soy, which is more hyperbole than reality. But we won't. That's another show.
Well, and we talk about soy real quickly, about the genetically modified organisms too, which is very
Absolutely.
scary. The 12 viruses in the soy seed, and then we've got the Roundup that's sprayed on the seed, and that's where the viruses are there, and you're eating that stuff. So
The ploy of soy. But so,
the non-GMO.
so soy is on that list. White sugar, which is no surprise, I think, to any
Right. Highly
self-respecting nutritionist. Eggs, which always saddens me, because I think eggs are really a very good food, and that includes the yolk.
So
But
why do you think that is?
I
mean,
think they're just, it's just, again, it's the overuse, and then I think
Overabuse of eggs.
peanuts. And also,
Moldy.
if you want to round out the field, even though we're now going beyond 7, I think citrus, especially oranges and grapefruits, and chocolate and caffeine, that's...
They're all laying down like right now, clutching their chests,
I
having
think
a heart
people are
attack.
starting to throw stuff at us. I think we've incited a riot here.
Well, but there are lots of really great foods out there
Absolutely.
that are non-dairy. I mean, I was showing my clients today chocolate bars that are made from rice milk, and, you know, alternatives to ice cream that are wonderful and delicious.
Or,
and
you know what, and not to, I don't want to, what about just moving away from the substitution concept?
doing whole life foods
And just
for a while.
doing, because I think that's the first step. Okay, first we get rid of, then we look for substitutes for our favorite foods.
Right.
So we go to soy cremo or
Right.
you know, banana, you know,
Alaska chocolate,
you know,
yeah.
banana hot dogs or something, you know, bizarre. You know, forget about trying to recapitulate your bad foods.
But some people are weak. They're not
well,
going to do it.
I know,
it's
but
like you got to give them an alternative. I mean,
I guess that's the first step, but I think really moving into a whole food diet, and I think that will really be its own reward, because when you start feeling better,
you're
it's-
happy.
Yeah,
and
it's like
things
life
work.
is great, and you know, it's like you discover a whole new world
Then
out
we
there.
end up with that twinkle in our eyes like Joe has, right? Dr. Joe.
I don't
All right,
know.
we have 1 minute left here, so I'm just going to ask
Okay,
you a quick
yes,
question.
I'm setting to my watch.
What if a person is diligent about their program, but the problem persists?
What I tell people is that the pathway to health is a series of steps. Just because an elimination diet doesn't exactly get them to the top step, that doesn't mean it wasn't an important step. But then we need to start thinking about incorporating other modalities, doing testing, even though I don't like the T word, doing some testing, you know, working on some other
And
things.
come see you, right?
Well, yeah, what the
Okay.
heck?
We have to wrap it up, Joe. It was great having you.
Well, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you for sharing all this information. You
Well,
were excellent. So if you'd
thank
like
you.
more information about where to find Joe Brasco, give me a jingle. I'm happy to refer you out and show you where he's at. Until next week, take good care of your health. Rotate your foods. Don't eat the same piece of chicken every single day. And try to lose weight and dairy for a while and see how much better you feel. Until then, take good care of your health. I'm Deborah Arneson, bringing you Health Quest. Good
It's
night.
the birds again.
The birds are back.